What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Trust Your Board podcast. My name is Stephen Wright, joined by Mr. William Monroe. Well, how was your week 4?
Week 4 was pretty good overall, Steve. Unfortunately, I am dropping from the ranks of undefeateds. It was myself, you, and our friend Greg in our work league. And there were 3 now, it looks like, barring a horrible game from Eckler, it'll just be you and Greg at the undefeateds at 4-0.
Yes, lucky me. Now, I do believe, if I looked correctly, yes, we play each other next week.
Yeah.
So you could ruin that.
That's the hope, at least.
So, yeah, I mean, we'll see. I'm looking at your team. It looks like you do have a number of tough matchups. But I don't have a ton of cakewalks either. But, yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, projections are pretty high for both teams. I mean, both in the 130s, 140s, so that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, they're looking. It was funny. The guy I'm playing this week, that was Seamus. His projection, I think, was like 150, 149. He ended up with 86. I was looking at his scores, like, he's not going to do this. This doesn't make any sense.
How does this? Yeah, I mean, you can take that with a grain of salt as always, but
yeah. It's just, it's funny. Some of them are legitimate, like Devontae Adams didn't put up, Kelsey didn't put up, but other times it was like, oh yeah, 12 points for Juju. And I'm like, no, I don't think so.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's funny. But yeah, a good week for us. We got some waivers to discuss, huh?
Yeah, it should be interesting. I know the last few weeks we were talking waivers and hasn't been a lot in the running back department. I mean, we had the big pop with Mitchell in San Francisco, but then he didn't really come to full fruition. And this week, I think we may have some people that, at least for a few weeks, can get you some playing time.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's probably one or two long-term guys in here. Definitely some short-term options. I guess the two big ones. Everybody knows the Montgomery issue. I think we're still waiting to figure out what exactly it is. But in the meantime, Damien Williams and what was it, Khalil Herbert?
Khalil Herbert, yeah.
Yeah, and Damien Williams was shaken up too as well, right?
Yeah, I think they think he should be all right, but he did get shaken up too. And Montgomery, I think I didn't see the injury, but I was reading about it. It seemed like he didn't look good right away. And now the initial diagnosis was a sprained knee, so probably a few weeks, but still getting an MRI today, so that could confirm one way or the other definitively what it is.
Yeah, so out of the two, obviously I think Damien Williams is the guy, as long as he doesn't miss a week or so. But yeah, I mean, given, I haven't seen a time frame on Montgomery. Like you said, you would assume a few weeks. What would you be bidding on Damien? I know you're bidding on him, right?
I mean, I think you got to bid on him for sure. And I mean, but I'd say keep an eye on the injury, right? If there's a chance that he's limited, maybe you don't bid as much, but you're probably looking at, upwards of 20% of your fab. Like I try to be pretty judicious with it, but if you're David Montgomery and owner and he's out for a few weeks, then, maybe you want to bid a little more. I mean, it probably doesn't get it done. Someone will probably bid, closer to 30. What do you think?
Yeah, it really depends on the situation. If I'm a good team, then I'd probably drop 20. If I don't need him or something like that, or just kind of a hedge. If one of my guys gets hurt this week, probably. But if I'm we just finished week 4, so if I'm like 1-3, or on like, the bad side of 2-2, like you're 2-2, but you might not have looked too good, and you're just trying to buy yourself a win for a week or two, then I'd probably put up a lot more. I'd probably be up at maybe even the 40s, just because it's a starting running back, and if you're in a desperate spot, then so be it. You got to find a way to win.
Fab doesn't do much for you, if you're not in the playoffs.
Yeah, it doesn't add to the win total. Yeah, so
nope.
I'd probably be looking in that range in that situation. Herbert's probably the tougher one because he could be the big winner if Damien's missing out on a week, or he could just be worthless. I probably just wouldn't put anything down on him. I mean, if I had a burner spot, a few bucks. Yeah, but probably nothing.
I usually like to have a couple of claims in. Like I'll usually cut 1 or 2 guys and then throw in a claim for like 6 or 7 dudes and have the top guys that I'm hoping to get with your high bids, but then a few guys at the end, $0, $1 or $2 on them. So that for worst comes to worst, you get outbid on some bigger guys, you still get an ad, and then you're still saving some money that way. So that's always a strategy to use as well.
Yeah, that is fair. Another guy that is coming about due to injury is Samaje Perine. I think less clear on the injury standpoint. The initial for Mixon, I think, was week to week, but then Zach Taylor came out and said day to day. So I don't know if it's like something in between there, like he might miss a week, and then the second week's kind of up in the air, or if he's just being optimistic. So that was a little bit of a unclear situation with Perine, huh?
Yeah, it's an ankle sprain, and I don't know. Did we get word if it's the dreaded high ankle sprain?
I believe it's a low ankle.
Okay, so hopefully it's not too bad. But given that he's already had an extended time off with the Thursday game, gives him a chance to play. I feel like I could really see them just sitting him here and giving him a full 2.5 weeks. Especially they're going up against Green Bay. So, I mean, obviously you always want to think you can win, and you probably need him against that team, but maybe you give him, inter-conference game, you want to win every game, but doesn't, it's probably the best games to lose are those cross-conference games because they don't go to your division record. They also don't go to your conference record. So maybe they want to sit Mixon, give him an extra week or two. I think Perine, you definitely can start him if he is the guy. I think he's probably had some consideration for flex in deeper leagues, prior to this because he has been getting work with Mixon in there. So, again, until we get really more clarity, you're probably not going to know much before waivers on Tuesday night. So, I don't know, somewhere in the 15 range. What do you think?
Yeah, that's about right. I think for me, somewhere between probably 10 and 15. I think you get a start out of him, but how valuable is that start going to be? Like, we know Perine, he's not going to light the world on fire, but he could be a serviceable flex option.
So volume.
Yeah, exactly. And again, going back to what I said before, if you're a 2-2 team and maybe your flex positions suck and you're trying to buy a win, maybe I'd go a little bit above 15, but it probably around there. I think is right.
I think you'll be able to use him. And Green Bay's defense hasn't looked great. The run defense hasn't been great. So it's a decent matchup if it is. And I think he was used in the pass game as well. So Green Bay likely puts up points. He should be valuable if Mixon's out. Yahoo currently has Mixon listed as doubtful. Obviously we're still a ways away from the week matchup here, but I think he's definitely worth the ad.
Yeah, and next guy on our list would benefit from an injury, but currently kind of like a 50-50 timeshare, at least last week. Alex Collins had a good week, had the touchdown. I believe him and Chris Carson
10 carries.
Yeah, they're pretty even when it comes to touches. So very interesting. It was a one-off week. He didn't do anything the week prior, and the week prior to that, not really anything either. So it is a one-off, but it is interesting. He split 50-50.
Yeah. I think it's almost right down the middle. Collins had 10 carries. Carson had 13 and a target. I don't know if Collins saw any targets there.
I believe he got 2, I think.
Yeah. So, very close to 50-50 when it comes to touches and targets. I don't know that I'm bidding much. You're banking on an injury there. And there may be weeks where you'll get, the touchdown. But without the touchdown there, you're looking at, 8-9 points in a half-point PPR. So, he had 34 yards on 2 catches, 44 yards on 10 carries. So I think he's someone that, probably should be rostered. But there is still some muddiness there with the other running backs. You still have DJ Dallas, you still have Rashad Penny, right? They're both healthy as far as I'm aware, right?
I believe so. If memory serves, if something might have happened to Penny, I don't recall. I might be thinking of, every other year in the past. But there's definitely a lot of guys there.
But I think he's worth a claim. He'd be someone that I'd be, in that strategy I elaborated on. I would probably have some bigger claims on Williams and Perine and maybe some other receivers we'll talk about. And then have him as like a zero claim or $1 or $2 claim as like a fallback option. Just kind of cutting one or two guys on the bottom of my roster that I know I'm going to get rid of anyway.
Yeah, that might be a guy that you look out for after bye weeks. You snag him to, cuff. Carson or something like that.
It's a good reminder. Bye weeks are coming up. I don't know if is it this week or 6?
I think it's 6 that it starts.
Coming up though.
Yeah, they are coming, sadly. Latavius Murray seems to have, at least for now, taken the Baltimore job. We'll see.
Yeah, healthy scratch for Tyson.
Yeah, that's not good.
No.
I guess we'll see. They activated Bell. Maybe they're seeing something more out of Bell, and who knows what's going to happen there. But for now, he is the starting guy. Only rostered in about 48% of leagues. I'm assuming you definitely got a lot of interest in Murray there, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's someone that probably should have been rostered anyway, and that shows with 48% rostership so far here for Yahoo leagues. That is going up against Indy. It's a Monday night game. You probably won't know definitively if Tyson will be playing unless they give the coach gives some updates on it. But I think Murray's a solid flex option even if Williams is in there, and if he's not, he's fire him up. Indy's defense is I think good coming into the year. Has been okay during the season, but nothing that you would, I think, sit a running back against.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed. And then I'll lump the final two together because they're kind of similar situations. But you have Gainwell, got another touchdown this week. That's what boosted him up. And McKissick, I believe, is really we all saw the last play. That definitely boosted him up for fantasy as well. So similar kind of players where you get that touchdown, it's going to be a pretty good day. If not, might be on the lower end. McKissick probably has a higher floor. But do you have interest? Does one of them pop out, the other not so much? They about the same to you? What do you think?
Yeah, pretty similar. I think Gainwell probably has more upside long term. If there's an injury or something ahead of him, it seems like the team wants to use him, right? They're starting him ahead of Boston Scott, who I think most people here in Philly anticipated would be the number 2. He hasn't done much when it comes to seeing the field because Gainwell has impressed in practice and he's played well during the games as well. So good to see him playing there. He's probably someone that I don't know that you can even flex. Maybe if you really need it, maybe in deeper leagues, but there's just so much to go around. Whereas McKissick, I think, is definitely someone that you could flex at this point. I saw a play of him just laying somebody out on a block as well. So I think he really just has the trust of the coaching staff. And that's why even if Gibson is a better player overall, McKissick's going to see touches. He's going to be on the field because they like just what he can do all around. So he's someone I think that needs to be rostered. And I mean, at this point, I guess that touchdown maybe gives him a little boost, but I don't know that you have to spend a ton to pick him up. 40% rostered. So people will probably pick him up mostly because of that touchdown, which kind of stinks because, right, if it wasn't for that, he doesn't have a great game. So I'm probably not spending much on him. What about you?
Yeah, it's probably about the same. I think it's one of those situations where you need to know your league. Like, do you have people that react to big plays like that and will go out and try to add somebody or pay big for somebody that had that big play, in which case you got to decide if you want to pay up or not. But if you're in a league where, they're probably a little bit more savvy and they're not looking at just single plays like that to make decisions, then yeah, you'd probably be fine just to make your kind of couple buck, 10% at most kind of a bid, and you'd probably be fine. So yeah, you got to know your league a little bit on this one, I think.
Yeah, so that wraps up running backs here. We'll look over to wide receivers, and with the DJ Chark injury, one that popped out to me here under 60% ownership, which is what we typically try to use for who we're going to pick up, is Laviska Shenault, 58% rostered, and got Tennessee this week. Seems like, Marvin seems like he's the one, but Shenault has been getting a lot of targets around the line of scrimmage, shorter targets that he kind of takes and goes, and maybe he picks up some more targets from Chark. What do you think about Laviska?
Yeah, he's definitely a guy that's got to be rostered out there, right? 60%, I think it's 58%, is far too low, especially at this point. You could justify it before, but now, it's got to be higher. He's got more upside than Marvin. Marvin's got a lot of upside to him, but Shenault, being the younger guy, could really put it together, figure things out, and, take that leap. It's a team that's going to be behind in plenty of games this year, so you're going to be seeing a lot of positive game scripts. Now, what would I bid on him? That's the tougher question because he's a wide receiver, right? And it's like, well, I don't want to put up a lot. 10%. I'd probably have to go up to like 12 to make it work, but probably something in that range if I needed a a wide receiver. If I don't, I'm probably not bidding him at all, but something in that range. What do you think?
Yeah, I was thinking around that 10 to 12 range, just because you're probably going to be playing matchups with him. Ideally, he's like a flex play depth receiver, so you don't want to spend too much for that. If you need something more, I think he's got a pretty solid, kind of floor, just because he's getting a lot of his passes close to the line of scrimmage. So any type of PPR, you're going to get a guy that has a lot of targets. He's 7 targets for 6 catches. He had a carry, so he's going to get some work just on the ground as well. But I don't, like we said, we don't really like to spend up on receivers. So I think somewhere in that 10 range makes sense.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And next on our list, finally making a sighting there, Kadarius Toney had himself a pretty good game. He looked good. He is a beneficiary of injuries to Shepard and to Slayton. Mm-hmm. Only rostered in 3% of leagues. But if those injuries persist, and, Shepard's got a pretty long injury history, and, Slayton hadn't been doing a lot anyway, I believe. So he could be interesting long term. Again, he's a rookie, so there's probably some growing pains there. But what are you thinking about for Toney?
Yeah, I'm probably not spending much just because of the downside that the other guys get healthy, and he's more of just a depth piece for that team, let alone your fantasy roster. But 1 carry, 6 catches, 9 targets. I mean, even with Galladay in the lineup, Evan Ingram, I believe, was playing. He still saw some work, so it's good. It's good to see. Saquon looks to be pretty much back from a talent standpoint, so that could, take away some of the shorter passes that I think you'd be really liking to see with Kadarius Toney. So I'm probably not spending up, but he'd be someone I would throw a $1 or $2 bid kind of at the back of my list or lineup of ads.
Yeah, that's the same for me. If you're in a deeper league, he's a good shot to take on. And he might establish himself as that kind of boom bust guy that, depending on your team, might be kind of good to have. If you're a team that's not putting up a ton of points, that could be helpful, when you come up against one of the more top tier teams in your league. If you want to stand a shot, maybe you take a boom shot on somebody. So he might stand to be useful in that regard. But yeah, I mean, if I had a burner spot, maybe a few bucks, and just see, maybe next week it continues, and then it doesn't matter. Shepard and Slayton come back, but the rapport has been established, and Toney's ascending. So maybe a few bucks if I had a spot, but I'm not super interested in him.
Yeah, agreed. The next 2 guys I think I'd be a little more interested in. We saw them this week. Jameson Crowder came back, 20% owned, going up against Atlanta, and then AJ Green had a big game, 24% owned versus San Francisco. A couple of veterans, maybe not the top targets on their teams, but guys that produced here this week. Any interest in either of them?
Yeah, I do. I like Crowder. We've always liked Crowder, right? He's got a good floor. He's going to be Zach Wilson's best friend, blah, blah, blah. He had a good week. It was his first week back, so that's good to see. Now, I want to be hesitant because the Jets as a whole were pretty good. Zach Wilson was pretty good, and that's not something we've seen. So I'm picking him up. I'm not exactly just plugging him right into the lineup. I do want to wait and see, because Zach Wilson go back to what we saw the weeks prior, and then maybe Crowder, he gives you that floor of like 5 catches and nothing else. So I do like him though. AJ Green, that's 3 weeks in a row. He had a big game this week, but from a fantasy perspective, he was good the prior 2 weeks as well. I think over 100 yards last week, and they had a touchdown the week before that. So yeah, he's looking pretty good. This is a high powered offense that you want pieces of, right? Despite 3 weeks in a row of being fantasy, not just relevant, but good for fantasy, he does worry me because the offense just seems like, it could be Green this week, Kirk the next, or something like that, and you're going to put him in your lineup and get burned, but he's got to be rostered, only 24%. That's shocking for how good he's been so far. So, forced to make a decision, I'd probably take AJ Green because of the offense he's on. But
yeah, higher upside.
Yeah, Crowder, the tough part is you probably should have picked up Crowder last week. Both of them are probably going to cost a lot after the week that you just put up. So, probably end up paying 15% for each of them. Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, and I probably, would look elsewhere at the receiver position, hope to grab the Crowder a week early with somebody else, on the way back. So I'm probably not looking at either. If I mean, I'll throw bids, 10 or less probably, but you're going to have someone that sees that production and wants to hop in on it.
Yeah, that makes sense. We saw Randall Cobb emerge. We got MVS now that is hurt. So Randall Cobb had himself a good day. Are you interested there?
I'll throw a couple bucks, but I think it's more than likely most weeks going to be Devontae Adams, probably Aaron Jones, number 2, and then you have Tunyon and Cobb competing. So Cobb will have a few good weeks here, but it's going to be tough to, I feel like, consistently rely on.
Yep, I'm in the same boat. I think we can lump Van Jefferson into that same boat as well. We got him in here, only rostered in 5% of leagues, but he's got to be the same kind of player, right?
Yeah, it's weird because I know you and I are both fans of Robert Woods, but it seems almost like he's starting to step in and kind of take that role. I mean, he had another week, 6 targets, 6 catches, 90 yards and a touchdown. He's been consistently getting, 6 targets the last 2 weeks. So it seems like they want to integrate him more and more in the offense.
Yeah, agreed. So that's another one. And then final guy we got here is Darnold Mooney. Had himself a good game, much to the chagrin of Allen Robinson owners. But he's a must-own, you would assume?
Yeah, at this point, I think he'll probably be better when we in all likelihood get Andy Dalton back soon. You had a week where he had a great week with Justin Fields in there, but there'll be another week where Fields will be all in on Allen Robinson, and I think that's really where more of the panic is with Robinson. But I think it's coming. It's going to be back and forth between the two of them, so I think it's tough to trust either of them while Fields is the quarterback here as a rookie.
Yeah, that is fair. So moving on to the tight end position here. We got a slew of your normal boom-bust kind of candidates here, Will. You mentioned Uzama had himself a big game, 2% rostered.
Best tight end in the league, right?
Yes, absolutely. Are you looking to pick him up or no?
Probably not. I think you're definitely chasing points there. I think there's a good chance that's his career game. He easily could, come out and have a couple good games, but I don't think you're getting that again. I'd be more interested in a Dawson Knox, especially this week against Kansas City. Should be some points scored there, we would think, or even like a Jared Cook.
Yeah, the tight ends, you're looking for the touchdown, right? And when you're doing that, you want to look at the better offenses, Knox and Buffalo, Cook with the Chargers, Max Williams with Arizona, another good game. So that's kind of
only 1% owned too, so he could be a guy if you really need a shot at tight end. They seem to really have been working him in.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know about you. I'm not paying probably more than like $5 for any of these guys.
No.
Unless they're all rostered in your league for some reason. And like Max Williams is the only one, then maybe some more. But yeah,
you're in a 3 tight end league.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, $5 or so, it could get you that, probably less. Quarterbacks, streamers here, Will. Got 4 for you. Tell me who you like. We got Matt Ryan. He is against the Jets. We have Sam Darnold against Philly, Trevor Lawrence against Tennessee, and Zach Wilson at Atlanta.
That's what's interesting. I probably lean Darnold of them. At home, teams looked good. Their defenses looked really good, so I'm interested to see how the Eagles' offense holds up there, but it could be another rough game like we saw with the Eagles in Dallas. And if that's the case, Darnold could have the ball a lot. They could dominate time of possession there. So that one I like. I'm actually interested in both Matt Ryan and Zach Wilson. If you really need a deep streamer, you're probably hoping this is more of your super flex option. But Zach Wilson showed some flashes, and he's gone up against a very, very bad Atlanta defense. Whereas Matt Ryan finally had a good game and got a decently tough matchup. I think the Jets defense hasn't been great, but they haven't been horrible. We've seen some flashes, and I just like Robert Saleh. So I think both of them could be decent streaming options.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'll take Darnold of the group. Crazy to say, but Matt Ryan is close. He had a big game. Hopefully, that's him figuring out the offense, or the whole offense figuring things out, and you could replicate that against the Jets. But I don't see a reason to roll the dice on that when Darnold's looks so good.
Absolutely. So that will bring us here to our defense and defensive streaming options, and a couple of defenses, one specifically that I didn't think I'd see on here, but a lot of people have been jumping ship. Is the Patriots, under 60% owned here at 59. They do have a juicy matchup against Houston coming up here. So that one, what do you think there? Is that a team you'd be willing to spend a couple bucks on, Fab, for defense?
Yeah, that's a long-term defense hold. This isn't just a streamer.
Yeah. We saw them, they looked pretty good against Tom Brady in Tampa. I mean, you could say there's some emotions that were happening on Sunday night, but I mean, Bill Belichick schemed it up and he held Tampa to what, 9?
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty solid. Their schedule, the Patriots are my defense in our league, so I'm kind of familiar with them. But their schedule's not bad. I mean, obviously they play the Jets. They got Atlanta's in there, Tennessee, who we're kind of including because they haven't looked that great. Atlanta's there. You do got your Buffalo matchups, so that's going to be an issue. So it's not like they have the world's best option, but yeah, I would drop. I hate dropping more than like 10% on a defense, but Patriots defense is pretty good. So probably around 10% because it does solve your problem for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I'd be right around that as well. I mean, and that's a defense that I would like to hold on to, especially if, you'd have a week against Buffalo. I'd like to hold on to them and take a depth hit for the week and then, pick up a defense. And then you have an auto drop for the next week. So that's definitely a defense that if you can get them, that's a team you want to hold on to.
Now, just for giggles, because again, they are pretty highly owned, Will. We got the Vikings versus Detroit, Raiders versus the Bears, Panthers versus Philly, and Packers at Cincinnati. Who would you like out of that group?
Yeah, I probably lean Vikings against Detroit and possibly the Panthers against the Eagles. As an Eagles fan, it's tough to say, but the offense has been pretty inconsistent, and that Panthers defense looks very good. I keep every time I see their defense playing well, I keep remembering. Not this year, but the year before, every single draft pick they made was on defense. And I think they did, invest some more this year, some free agents. They've really put a lot in that defense, and that could be a very good defense going forward.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I'm going with the Panthers. I do glance at the Raiders. Vikings are a solid option as well, but yeah, I like the Panthers as well.
Yeah.
Cool. And that is going to take care of the Waivers show. Everyone, tune in on Thursday for another episode of Start Sit. Until then. Trust your board.